Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Homeopathic Super Sessions by Dr. Jagose. Today I'll be doing the part 2 of Carroll Dunham's 4th chapter, Primary and Secondary Symptoms of Drugs as Guides in Determining the Dose. So, Hahnemann consistently stresses the fact that our prescriptions must not be based on the secondary symptoms. So on the part first, I told you that Dr. Hahnemann and Carroll Dunham says also that the primary symptoms are of the utmost importance in order to base a prescription. So Hahnemann, in continuation to that, Hahnemann says, or he stresses the fact that our prescriptions must not be based on the secondary symptoms. When we examine Hahnemann's remark on the individual drugs of the Materia Madica Pura, we find deviations from its definitions and illustrations as given in the Organon. So now let us see what deviations Dr. Hahnemann has which is said in the Materia Madica Pura as well as in Organon. In the Materia Madica Pura, first to the 4th edition, in the preface of Belladonna, the symptoms which are described are of the opposite condition, such as contracted pupils and dilated pupils, sleeplessness and deep slumber, suppressed stool and urine, and involuntary stool and micturition, etc. Hahnemann says Belladonna may be given when either one or the opposite symptoms or conditions are present. However, in Organon, we are told not to base our prescriptions on these opposite symptoms. In Organon, the opposite symptoms are called as secondary symptoms. So out here, there was some, if we examine Hahnemann's remark in the Materia Madica Pura, we find some deviations from his definition, which say that, or rather, he says that our prescription must not be based on the secondary symptoms. However, in the Materia Madica Pura regarding Belladonna, he tells us that we can take the symptoms either one or the opposite symptoms of Belladonna we can be taken. And in Organon also, he says that we are told not to base our prescription on the opposite symptoms on the secondary symptoms. In the introduction to Nux Vomica in Materia Madica Pura, 1st edition, he tells us about alternating actions. Symptoms which differ very much from one another and appear to be opposite to each other, although they belong to the primary action of the drug, are known as alternating actions. So alternating actions are one which they come, but they are opposite to each other and they belong to the primary action of the drug. Among the symptoms of Nux Vomica, we have anorexia as contrast with great appetite. These are alternate actions and belong to the primary symptoms and are therefore to be used as basis of prescription. What can be the distinction on the time front which call the symptom that occurs first as primary and those which occur later as secondary? So where shall we draw the line? So he says that what is the time frame in which we can say that in this much time if the symptoms occur, it is known as primary, and after that it is known as secondary. So where is the demarcation line on the time front? How many hours or days shall we allow for the development of primary symptoms? Different drugs have different actions. Hence, it is obvious that a special rule must be established for each drug. So different drugs have different actions. So therefore, the primary symptom time interval will be different from one drug to the other drug. Similarly, of the secondary symptoms also. So for each drug, the actions are different and the time interval also will be different. Hahnemann in the preface to Fragmenta, firstly, it intimates us that the symptoms which appear in one prover today will not appear for several days in another prover. So in the Fragmenta de Verbis, Hahnemann says that when he starts proving the drug, maybe in one prover, it will appear one symptom or a set of symptoms will appear, and in another prover, it will not, the same set of symptom or symptom for another prover will not appear for several days. Secondary, a very small dose may produce only a series of symptoms. A larger dose, 2 series of opposite symptoms. And a still larger dose, 2 series of differently opposed, and a very large dose again, only 2 series. So also you can see the dose, the variety of doses, very small dose, larger dose, still larger dose, they all produce different sets of symptoms or series of symptoms. This view has been well illustrated by Professor Allen, but may content myself with two illustrations from our Materia Medica. On looking over in the register of symptoms of argentum nitricum, we find the symptoms occurring early in the proving, like irritation of the bladder and urethra, and increased frequency and quantity of urine. So, in argentum nitricum, we find early symptoms of bladder irritation with increased frequency and quantity of urine. Occurring much later in the proving, diminution in frequency of micturition and in the quantity of the urine. So the secondary symptom will be opposite of the primary symptom. Hence, surely one might say that the former to be primary and the latter to be secondary. If we examine the prover's day book, we find that the majority of provers who took large doses reported the former and not the latter symptoms. So therefore, if we examine the day books, and we see that the majority of the provers who took large doses reported the former symptom, that is increased urination, irritation of the bladder, etc. It was the prover who took the 30th reported diminished urine and did not report any increase at any time. Hence, they are different, unrelated, independent effects of different doses in different individuals. So, as told previously also, that the drug, it depends upon the dose, what it is given. According to the dose, the symptoms will be reflected or exhibited. Most of the provers of tellurium who took the third trituration had on first and the subsequent days symptoms of general sensibility of sweat, of skin, of the bladder, etc. But one prover who took the fourth trituration had no symptom until the 14th or 15th day, when cutaneous symptoms affecting the ear appeared and were persistent and troublesome. So also you could see here, tellurium also, when taken in the third trituration, when taken in the fourth trituration, the number of days taken for the symptoms to appear and the symptoms are of a different order or of a different characteristic or different in nature. Hence, were these symptoms secondary because they came later than the other symptoms in other provers? If so, secondary to what? So for that, certainly as regards time, they were secondary. So as regarding to time, definitely they were secondary. It must be remembered that Hahnemann had a great experience as a drug prover. With his devotion and powers of observation and analysis, he was well aware of the fact that the appearance of the apparently contradictory symptoms in a proving was dependent on the dose, as appears from reference 66 of the 4th edition of Organon. For this reason, he recommends the use of small doses in proving. The value of primary and secondary symptoms as guides in selecting the remedy will depend upon the constant characteristic symptoms, which are also series of alternating actions. So therefore, the value of this primary and the secondary symptoms will depend upon the characteristic symptoms which have to be present. Example of Veritam album, it is known for the treatment of diarrhea, but it is highly valued remedy for constipation also. Here it has evacuation of feces impossible because of inertia of rectum. Hence, the same remedy will be efficacious in diarrhea and constipation. So we are seeing here the value of the primary and the secondary symptoms in guidelines for selecting the remedy, provided they are constant characteristic symptoms, which also have a series of alternating action. So example of Veritam album is useful for diarrhea and constipation, and so on. Nux vomica furnishes a similar example. It is efficacious in certain forms of constipation, as well as dysenteric diarrhea is well known. Thus, the following conclusions can be summarized. The appearance or non-appearance of opposed series among the symptoms of a drug chiefly depends, if not altogether, upon the dose in which the drug was proved. The symptoms apparently opposed occurring in the drug proving are equally available as guides in the selection of the remedy. Now, regarding the law of dose, Herring has deduced the symptoms must be chosen on its characteristic features, both in disease and the drug. So this we already know, and Dr. Herring has given a conclusion regarding the law of dose it says that we must take into account the characteristic features or the characteristic symptoms both in the disease and in the drug. Then only we have to consider primary symptoms of the drug and can be given in the low potency. So for this, we can only consider the primary symptoms of the drug and we can use the low potency. If it resembles the secondary symptoms of the drug, then we have to give it in high potency. Dr. J.H. Hale, in his article in 1860 on the dose, he says that the proper dose for each case must be selected, which must certainty as the proper remedy. He further says that we must select a remedy whose primary and secondary symptoms correspond with those of the malady to be treated. So Dr. J.H. Hale is of the opinion that both the primary and the secondary symptoms have to be taken into consideration. Dr. Hale illustrates this by referring to aconite and says that the primary symptom corresponds to the chilly stage of fever and the secondary symptoms correspond to the hot stage of fever. Thus, he recommends a small dose of dilution of aconite during the chilly stage and large doses of the tincture or first decimal during the hot stage. However, Dr. Hahnemann was not satisfied with the view of Hale. Hale has cited many examples of drugs having primary and secondary symptoms like cinchona, ferrum, conium, nux vomica, ignitia. For further reference, you can refer to the book, page 132. Unfortunately, neither Hahnemann's provings of cinchona and ferrum, nor Hahnemann's or Harley's proving of nux vomica and ignitia seem to support or confirm the allegations of Dr. Hale. So whatever Dr. Hale had said, it wasn't correct because no proof was there either from Hahnemann's proving of cinchona and ferrum or the provings of even Harley's, which supported Dr. Hale's allegations or claims. Thus, Dr. Hale's statement on the law of dose was not correct, as Hahnemann himself had given high potencies in both the cold and hot stages when aconite was indicated. Thus, to conclude about the law of determination, the dose, it can be said that the symptoms cannot be divided into primary or secondary, nor can it be deduced from relation of opposite or contrary basis. So now, this is a small little table in which the different definitions are given or the distinction between primary and secondary symptoms are given. So the primary symptoms, they occur first in order or they occur earlier, whereas secondary symptoms, they occur at a later period. Primary symptoms are of more importance, the secondary symptoms are of lesser importance. Primary symptoms, they are direct action or it comes earlier, whereas secondary symptoms, they are indirect secondary action or comes late. In the secondary symptoms, action is opposite to the primary action, not so in primary. In primary symptoms, known as first order symptoms, secondary symptoms, known as second order symptoms. Primary symptoms, it comes and goes in a brief period, whereas secondary symptoms, it comes after the primary symptom and disappears quickly within a few hours. In primary symptoms, symptoms are exhibited with small dose or moderate dose when given, and symptoms are less frequently observed when small or moderate doses are given. And they are positive symptoms on which we base our prescription, as said by Hahnemann, that's the primary symptoms, whereas the secondary symptoms, prescriptions cannot be based on secondary symptoms as quoted by Hahnemann. So, as you all can see in this chapter, primary and secondary symptoms of drugs as guides in determining the dose, all these important points about the primary and the secondary symptoms have been spread out in the chapter. It is not given in order. So I have made this table and made it more easier for you to remember the distinction between the primary and the secondary symptoms. So that's all for today. And I hope you liked my video. I've tried it to simplify it as much as possible, taking only the important points into consideration so that you all can remember it for your exam and you can do well. Thank you very much.